Hello, this is Eric. We're going to talk about what it's like growing up in a dysfunctional home and how that affects us as adults. And I have my own personal journey, which I'll share in a way I think that's respectful of my family, but also just not too detailed just to give a sense of what it's like. Um, there was a movement in, I'd say, the 1970s, 80s that kind of emerged from a number of therapists probably comparing notes and realized that there was kind of common symptoms people struggled with. Symptoms of having a hard time feeling feelings. Sometimes being really, really responsible. Feeling like being a mini adult. Um, having maybe a general distrust of people, or maybe even having dysfunctions and addictions themselves, or a kind of a need to take care of people. And so I had all these things. Dysfunctional family really doesn't necessarily mean to put down people or to label. I think originally it had to do with a system meaning more than one parts working together. So a family of five people could have um, the dynamics between all of them, and that was considered the system. You have people that overfunction, you have people that underfunction. Does the overfunctioning people overfunction because the underfunctioning people underfunction? Or do the underfunctioning people underfunction because they know the overfunctioning people will take care of them? Well, in a cybernetic relationship, it's like, yes, they um, interact with one another, and you don't think in terms of cause and effect. You think in a higher level of thinking, which is more like these things interact with each other in a way that begins to have a mind of its own. So what I like about this model is it's really not about blame. It's not blaming parents, and this is where I'm saying this as kind of a counteractive thing, that where I hear people, not so much anymore, but people in workers, well, he's so dysfunctional. Well, okay. Apart from it doesn't really tell us what he struggles with. Um, is it just more of the same? Labeling and shaming. Dysfunctional families struggle with shame. Shame, healthy shame is, I know that I'm not God, that I could pee my pants, I could be embarrassed or ashamed when I do something very human. But there's something called toxic shame. Toxic shame is the original terms that these writers wrote about that was beyond normal shame. Like normal shame, healthy shame lets me know I'm not God, that I am human. I'm human and I need to drink something because I got a tickle in my throat. But toxic shame is like I'm a bad person, beyond bad. Like no one else does these things. So then I either go down the path of shamelessness, where I pretend that I don't have any problems, I can't admit problems, or I go shameful, where I'm just a bucket full of problems. And it's hard to have a relationship there as well because I'm just too bad. Um, at some level, each of these looks like an inflated sense of self and ego, and therefore dysfunctional. So if you think about the alcoholic, there's the alcoholic who won't admit any problems, is so defending their face, they can't save their rear end. There's a colorful phrase that says you can't save your face and your ass at the same time. I do think that's a real true statement. If we're trying to save face, we're probably not going to get better. The shameless person, who there's different versions of that, but shameful and shameless is usually the person who just acts kind of better than other people. It's it's a little high horse or a little stepping higher than other people, feeling insecure about just being this human and having problems. So I for a while I prayed, what is the opposite of shame? Like if shame is the problem, what's the opposite? I believe the opposite is acceptance. Acceptance that I'm a human being. I make mistakes every day. I can either grow through those mistakes or try to hide and minimize them. If I try to hide and minimize them, they often get worse. So, back to some of these great people, Claudia Black, um, John Bradshaw, Janet Woititz, Sharon Wegsheider Cruz, Pia Melody. I could go on. And there's one other lady who really helped Janet Woititz with the famous book, Adult Children of Alcoholics. In fact, it probably behooves me to look that up right now. Janet Woititz. ACOA was what it was called. And so we owe a lot to her. Let's see if I can. Well, I'm not going to spend too much time on that now, but so let's go through some of these. I think we should just jump into. Um, so now, originally, this was called The Symptoms of Adult Children of Alcoholics, but it turns out that maybe there was not an alcoholic in the home, but there was someone with a mental illness, someone who had problems with sexual addiction or compulsive spending or gambling or overeating, or were just really codependent. Um, Now, people say, well, everybody's dysfunctional. Okay, I get that, but how is that helpful to? And they did do a study. Actually, about 20 years later, they did a study and found that everybody does have some of these traits. But for those, some of us have them so much worse than others. So, this is the first one. Adults from dysfunctional families guess at what normal behavior is. So, what does this mean? Well, we really kind of are oriented towards fitting in and being normal. Like, if we didn't have the experiences we grew up with, we wouldn't really concern ourselves with being normal. But that's why this obsession to be normal, like it's normal to drink like this, or it's normal to be this way. It's just we don't even know what we don't even know. I had a desire to help people probably early on since I went to a middle school counselor and he helped me. Actually, two of them helped me. They couldn't really help my family situation. I could tell that, alcoholism and abuse and this kind of thing, but they just helped me to the best of my ability to deal with the situation at hand. And they didn't even meet with my parents, and I wasn't able to even get a normal haircut that could fit in with the other kids. But I had a friend who I didn't see often. In fact, she says, "Well, are your parents alcoholics?" I said, "No." Um, okay, it's fascinating. Why would she ask that? Like, I mean, just no awareness at all. And then a couple of years later, I was beginning to get into college. I was studying sociology, social work, went to Wazoo, where there's lots of drinking there, worked on a crisis line. And then she said, and she was a drug and alcohol counselor too. Do you, are your parents alcoholics? I said, no. It was more like, why are they asking this? Then I went to Northwest College or University now, was an in a juvenile detention center working with people. And some of the things described there, they said, well, this is childhood abuse. You need to report it to CPS. And it's like, really? And I didn't get it because I thought that what they experienced was normal because I experienced some of that. So then later, I'm in a master's level class, okay, on drug and alcohol. I was excited about this class. This was going to be cool. And I'll never forget this. This is the bizarrest thing in the world. The instructor, well, I can know the names, but I won't say them out there for her privacy. But she says, children of alcoholics grow up in these roles. And the first role is the person who is compulsively good. I'm going to get my hand out here. The second born is compulsively bad. So families. Hold on, I can see if I can pull this up. Yep, hopefully I can do that. I think it's worth this. Yep, okay. We're going to do this. We're going to go to the StreamYard. I'm going to remove this one, and I'm going to add another. Thanks for the delay here. We'll go to this one. Okay. And I'm going to take myself out of that. So the family needs the kids to represent things to avoid their own problems. So the firstborn, the hero, is compulsively good, perfect, can't be wrong, gets positive attention, awards, degrees. What you don't see is the fear of failing, and they're over-controlled. The next column, what they do for the family and why they play along. The family feels we're not so bad. After all, look, he has this doctorate, or he's a pastor, or he's an attorney, or a doctor. The hero likes the attention, and so they play along. Power and tension. Now, without help, this is very possible. They can become workaholics, physical illnesses. So think mind-body experience. They're controlling. And they're not much fun. They're serious. They can be prideful and shameless. Okay. With help, they can be achievement-oriented versus success. They can learn to say no and not be so perfect. And they can get into touch with the stuff of their bad stuff. Just start to be human. Come down off that higher horse. Now, the second-born naturally can't compete. So they are called the scapegoat. And the scapegoat in the family is the person who takes the heat. They're bad, they're angry, they're impulsive, they're never good enough. They're the black sheep of the family. They don't fit in. What you don't see is they're hurt, feels rejected, full of shame, and feels like a loser. I see this over and over again. Why do we see it over and over again? Because the scapegoat is the one who usually comes to counseling. The family brings little Tommy in, and Tommy's doing all this bad stuff. And mom and dad can agree on that. And they want me to help Tommy get fixed. But if I see this from a systemic point of view, I begin to wonder what mom and dad do. Do they drink? Do they have problems? What is the need for this? And I've seen it so it's severe where, well, say Tommy comes in, this was 30 years ago, this nice woman, they're all nice people, but She says, well, I'm really worried about him. He has all these problems. I hope he doesn't turn out like my brother who went to jail. I kind of said, I don't know if we should say that in front of him. I don't even know if we should think such thoughts about that because that won't help anything. His sister, who's older, is sitting there. So guess what? The mother was older and she had the younger brother who went to jail. Now her sister, her daughter can do no wrong and the son can do no right. And literally one time, as I was trying to share these ideas of scapegoat, because see, you're going to want to get attention some way. And if you can't get attention by being good, why not be bad? Yes, have the problems at school, etc. So she brought out, and I'm not putting her down at all. It's just astounding to see how this really does fit. These patterns are really there. He's my client, but she says, I want you to see my daughter's grades. Okay. And they're all A's. Cool. And then I said, well, what's Tommy's grades? And she pulled them out and says, well, here they are. Well, they were all A's too. I mean, they were really good marks. So it's just how things are, that they're not oriented to see it from the point of family roles. So the firstborn's really good. The secondborn's really bad. And they're really not bad. But by the way, they're more risk takers. They will try to, they'll argue, they're more likely to blow the whistle on the whole family. Without help, they can be trouble with the law, addictive, promiscuous, chip on the shoulder, continuing to play the role in jobs. So they can, sometimes in jobs, they continue to have the same problem over and over. With help, they can actually be quite good, learn to feel appreciated and accepted. They do take appropriate risks. They really often don't care what people think so much, like the firstborn cares too much what people thinks. They can actually be missionary types to go out there and take risks, in a very powerful way. So the lost child is the third child or children in there. And by the way, these things can be mixed up. The hero could actually be the secondborn, or the scapegoat could be the firstborn. Sometimes if there's a boy and a girl, then they're two heroes. And then the scapegoat doesn't happen until the next boy or girl is born. Okay. The rule, well, not the rule, but the principle is the more rigid these things are, the more dysfunctional. The less rigid these roles are, the better. Okay. Because we all really make mistakes. We all can do wonderful things, etc. The lost child doesn't get attention. They're often ignored, quiet, invisible, loves animals. So here I am back in this class, and I don't want to say things that a family member might be upset with, but I'll just say this is my story though too. I'm in this class. I mean, I can remember it like it was a Tuesday night class. Very powerful. And the teacher says, thirdborns in an alcoholic family love animals. And my jaw dropped. Like, are you kidding? A family member I know worked at a pet store. And all of a sudden, all these things started to come to light. I could see now that I was the firstborn. I could see the secondborn. I could see that my parents drank a lot. I'm not trying to put them down. It's just my story. They drank a lot. And I could then feel the resentment of all the times I had to get them beers and then I began to equate that the violence and the things that happened that they did was probably related to alcohol. So the more I studied this, the more I realized I came from an adult family. Well, I came from an alcoholic home. It often is that we'll see the symptoms before we'll actually consider how much are people drinking. Okay. Because it seems like every alcoholic I work with, or family members with alcoholism, will actually look at the amount and say, well, I don't drink that much, so how can I be an alcoholic? But that level is always based on what they think is a lot. And then when I ask someone in a very gentle way, hey, how much do you think you drink? Alcoholics will say something to like this: I don't drink much. I didn't say how little you drank. I asked how much you drank, and I would never say that. But that's how it's coded in their mind, that they really don't think it's a problem. Okay. So adult children struggle with those same kind of things. We feel like we could be found out if people really knew us, and they wouldn't love us, and it would go south, and it wouldn't be a good thing. Um, Going back to our list here. The last born is clown role or mascot. They're cute, funny, anything for a laugh, hysterical. They hide the pain with humor. They're scared, they feel inadequate. They bring comic relief to the family. Again, they help the family avoid the issues. So the firstborn helps them avoid mom and dad's issue by saying, look, she's such a good, she's so successful, and they're proud of her. And then the second, well, yeah, okay, well, we don't have the problem. They really have the problem. And then the lost children often are invisible. No one has to worry about them. Now, with help, they can actually learn that they do matter, that they can be included, and they are talented. And a lot of times they've been able to handle things alone. They don't really need a lot of attention. The lastborns can learn to be more human, and to cry more, or to be more upset, and to set aside humor and to use humor in good ways, but to not have it be compulsive. Okay. Um, so there you have it. I was going to share it in another video, but here you get it in this one. Um, let's go back to the list of symptoms, and then this might make more sense. The symptoms of coming from an adult family. We have difficulty following a project through from beginning to end. We lie when it would be just as easy to tell the truth. Yeah, the level of honesty seems to be challenged in any addictive home. Like, just why not talk about things in a simple way, like this is how much I drank, or this is, I have a problem with this. But it's because of shame we feel the need to hide. We may say, oh, I'm fine, when really maybe we're not. We don't even know we're lying. You heard this phrase. It doesn't, the acronym doesn't really fit, but it's what people say. Denial stands for don't even know I am lying. Well, no, if you do the spelling, is Know instead of no, but it's kind of fun. But denial is really unawareness, just not awareness. I wasn't lying. I just didn't know what I didn't know. That's why one of the first steps in recovery is to really start to read a little bit or go to a meeting, just to see what the disease really is rather than what you think it is. Adult children from alcoholics or dysfunctional families judge themselves without mercy. They just have a very high standard of how they should be. And their alcoholic abusive families develop a fear of making mistakes. So they shame you if you make a mistake. It becomes a big stinking deal. So then people walk on eggshells. And some of us, you just get physically hurt if you make the wrong mistakes, just for being human. Adult children have difficulty having fun. Now, by the way, you might be suffering from some of these, but not all of these. Maybe you know how to have fun. That's great. So pick what fits, and even try not to make yourself dysfunctional so that you can say, look, I come from a dysfunctional family. No, it's more about if some of these really fit, then you can start to look at, well, what does recovery look like? But yeah, families that are dysfunctional aren't really the safest of families. So we put on a hypervigilance, almost like an armor, a suit to protect ourselves. Or we have to drink or drug or spend or eat when we're with each other. And this can prepare us for Thanksgiving. Adults from dysfunctional families take themselves from very, very seriously. They tend to be very serious. They're not really easygoing. It comes back with the making a mistake, etc. We have difficulty with intimate relationships. Uh, Intimacy is being our true self without fear of rejection. So I'll say that again, is intimacy. And then people think, oh, sexuality. No, I mean, that is an intimate thing. But intimacy is being our true self without fear of rejection. So what does this mean? Well, an intimate friend, you can share more and more your true self. You can just share what really bothers you. You don't have to put up a guard or preface so much. That's why support groups can be so much help, because they're designed to not offer crosstalk. You just share, and you share based on whatever it is you're studying in whatever particular group. And if you see other people share their problems, then you feel like, well, no one's judging them. Well, that's the rules. You don't crosstalk. Then you can begin to share your problems. And hearing yourself say the problem out loud into the air, where before you feel like almost panicky, will they love me? What's wrong? But again, don't try to save face. Just try to save your rear end. So if you're in 12 steps or any kind of group, just try not to have the people like you. What I mean by that is don't focus on friends, focus on recovery. The more you share and honestly and tell on yourself and show the defects, my experience is people actually like you all the more, because it encourages them to share more honestly and openly. And then we really realize we're not really being judged. People really aren't as critical as we think they are. Then we begin to realize this was our own problem. This was something that we can own and see that this is the effects it had on our psyche. Of course, we talked about having difficulty with intimate relationships, and then here are the roles: scapegoat, lost child, hero. There is a loss of one's true self, or real self, or authentic self. And it's really, really important to be able to be your real self. If I hide my real self, and I wish I had the cartoon here. It's a great cartoon. It's a little guy in a Ferris wheel. And at the top, you can see that he's showing his real self to the world. Well, then people can love him more because they're seeing more his real self. Well, because he's loved and appreciated and okay as a person, then he's able to love himself appropriately. Love, we'll talk about love of self, but love himself in appropriate manner by taking care of himself, by being honest, in Christian terms, repenting. And if I can do that, then I'm going to show my real self more. But here's the opposite. If I don't show the real self here, and how is anybody really going to love the real self? Love my real self. And then, as I am wearing a mask and hiding, I'm not really going to love my real self. I won't really be known. People won't really know me, which then keeps this vicious cycle going. Because if people really can't love the real me, then I'm not going to love the real me. Because it seems like which came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it my parents who brought me into this world that by God's grace that loves me first, that helps me feel loved? I think so. Um, and then we learn to appreciate ourselves and go, well, I guess I have value because these people seem to be taking such good care of me. By the way, as we talk about dysfunctional families, let's not forget that everybody does the best they know to do. These are givens. Even parents with severe mental problems or addictions are doing the best they know to do. Doesn't mean it really didn't cause you harm. Well, absolutely not. But they're doing their best. I don't think there's people out there really maliciously, let's have children and hurt them and destroy their lives. It's out of their own brokenness and weakness. And so, if that being the case, then we ourselves have these problems too, and we really need more healing than beating ourselves up, which is really kind of misguided. It just, we're expecting more out of ourselves than we can muster up because we all struggle. Um, Adult from dysfunctional families overreact to changes which they have no control. Well, lately, you could almost say that about all of us. um, Maybe it's mandates, maybe it's, COVID numbers or job situations or people's opinions or family members that differ from you or elections or on and on and on. There's all kinds of things. I think maybe disasters like a earthquake or a hurricane, we may be more likely to not try to control. We have more humility there. But when it comes to people situations, we think we can control them, and we can't. Whether you're a leader trying to lead people, but it doesn't really work to try to use control. Why this was on my heart is not only do I think we all struggle at some level at home level, if we can see these principles operating at a political level as a nation, um, let's just go to the side here. I know this is kind of going long, but um, I don't know if we're obsessed with normal. But look, if people just followed through a project from beginning to end, there's a lot of people that will speak so highly, will do this and this and this, maybe politicians, and then they don't. Now, there's a few I've actually seen try to follow it through from beginning to end. Dysfunctional families, dysfunctional politicians would lie when it would be just as easy to tell the truth. They really feel that telling people what they think we should hear will help us, when most of us, I think, are smarter to see through it and go, no, I think that's now just breaking trust. Okay. Now here's where we might do this to them. We may judge them without mercy. I'm really concerned. A good friend shared this phrase that I've heard before, but the way she said it just stuck out at me, where she said, I'm really concerned about the dehumanization that's taking place. I think that's more serious than we can ever imagine. I think what they're getting at is we begin to see people not as people. We begin to see them as objects. And I'm not even trying to start a mask versus no mask controversy, but one of the concepts of the mask wearing is taking away that human aspect. Um, And that's why we could say that person should this and that person should that, and they're so stupid, and all that name calling and names. If a name calling turns the person not into a person, and even the word politician, or even the name who's so recognizable, am I seeing them as a person? Do I really know them? Do I really know their heart? Or am I just mad at their policies or even what the media's told me about their policies? So I don't know. I'm praying for people so that I can just see them as people. I think it's really a key. And that's the problem with dysfunction is that bless the heart of parents that they may see their kids as objects. The family roles certainly are kind of an objectifying of people yeah, and I could go on and on about that. I think some of these might be better broken down into smaller pieces, but I'm on a roll here. I think I'm just going to continue on with some of the basics. Um, at least some of the most important ones. Um, Adults from dysfunctional families constantly seek approval and affirmation. This is a subtle one. We may not think we do, but we actually might be wanting affirmation. And that's why we could be people pleasers, trying to do always be good, always be right, never be angry. Does this fit the politician? Sure, it may. Is it dysfunctional? I think so. I saw, on the news, how would you like it if you're trying to do the best you know to help with a policy or run a country or whatever, and then there's ratings, how well the people like you. We're rated on Facebook, how many likes, how many dislikes, YouTube, etc. And then sports, we're watching a game, and the commentators are commenting on positives and negatives, and it's like how how helpful is that is when they're trying to play the game. Now I know that they're interested in the game, but us viewers are hearing them criticize someone. I just wonder if that doesn't really interfere with the process of trying to do what you're trying to accomplish. But on a positive note, here's the thing: if an approval rating is plummeting, and I were a politician, I would try to look at that and say, well, at least now I know that most of the country is not supporting me, at least according to this one study, this public poll. So I think that's good feedback. And since politicians are there to represent the people, in theory, that I think that's a good deal. Adults from dysfunctional families usually feel they are different from other people. Again, this is closely similar to the feeling of wanting to be normal. Um, Adults from dysfunctional families are super responsible or super irresponsible, or sometimes both. This I can identify with. It's like I just can't do something halfway. I got to do it really well, perfectly. Um, it's compulsive. There's not a choice. A lot of dysfunction has to do with lack of choice. You feel compelled to do something. A lot of dysfunction has to do with being rigid or stuck, and it's all or it's nothing. And if we're talking brain processes, it's the middle part of the brain, not the highest thinking here. And you can see that as happening in the world. So. Well, I'll post this list in the link description. There's actually 30 altogether. I kept on adding more and more and more, and some of them are repetitive and some of them are kind of lengthy, but those were kind of the original four. So I plan on, if you want to hear more about this, we're going to be doing a video on the 3 rules of a dysfunctional family. Don't talk, don't feel, don't trust. And we'll also be doing a video series on boundaries, which I think are really important. And they really do help us get along better with people to actually have a boundary, which is this idea where I am and where the other person is. Well, thank you for watching. If you enjoy this, feel free to subscribe or like or push that notification bell. If there's things you'd like to see us talk about, let us know in the comments as well. You take care and have a great day.